I came to Red Creek looking for silence. As a writer, I craved a blank canvas, a place where the only voices in my head were those of my characters. The small Appalachian town, wedged between misty mountains and evergreen forests, seemed perfect. I rented a cabin by a stream, where the sound of running water was my constant soundtrack. The town was a time capsule. A single blinking traffic light, a diner with cracked vinyl seats, and a general store that smelled of sawdust and coffee grounds. The people were polite but reserved. Their eyes lingered on me a moment too long. I was the only black man for miles, a novelty they hadn't yet figured out how to classify. I didn't mind. I wasn't here to make friends. I was here to write. I spent my days at my laptop and my evenings walking the forest trails, soaking in the melancholy beauty of the place. I kept notebooks, jotting down observations, the old man on the porch of the general store who whittled wood, the teenagers racing their pickups down Main Street. They were details for my novel. Sometimes I'd go to the diner for dinner. That's where I first saw her. Sarah Jane Mayweather. She was the local princess, the daughter of the wealthiest man in the county. Blonde hair, a smile that could melt ice. She worked there as a waitress, probably so her father could teach her the value of hard work. Unlike the others, she didn't look at me with apprehension. She looked with curiosity. One evening, she sat down at my table when the place was empty. "You're the writer, right?" she asked, her voice as soft as a southern breeze. "What are you writing about?" We talked for a bit. About books, about life in the big city, about what it was like to live in a town so small. It was an innocent, fleeting conversation. But in Red Creek, nothing went unnoticed. I saw the other patrons watching us, their faces unreadable. And then she disappeared. The news spread through the town like wildfire. Her pickup was found abandoned on the side of Highway 17, a desolate road that wound through the mountains. The door was open, her purse on the seat. Sarah Jane was gone. A panic seized the town. Search parties were formed. Men with grim faces and rifles combed the woods. Women gathered in the church, praying for her safe return. The atmosphere grew heavy, thick with fear and suspicion. And that suspicious gaze soon turned to me. It started with whispers. Conversations in the general store would fall silent when I walked in. People would cross the street to avoid my eyes. I was the outsider, the anomaly. In the town's frightened mind, my otherness became synonymous with menace. Sheriff Brody paid me a visit one evening. He was a large man whose body had long since lost its battle with gravity. He acted friendly, but his eyes were cold and calculating. He said he was just questioning everyone who might have seen Sarah Jane in her final days. I told him about our brief conversation at the diner. He listened, nodding, but his friendliness felt strained. "You walk in the woods a lot, Mr. Jones?" he asked. "Folks say you're often seen around the Highway 17 area." "I'm a writer, Sheriff. I walk everywhere." "I observe," I replied. 2 days later he returned. This time he wasn't alone, and he had a warrant. They turned my little cabin upside down. They weren't looking for clues, they were looking for confirmation of their theory. And they found it. My notebooks. Sheriff Brody read my entries aloud with a sardonic smirk, twisting my words out of context. My descriptions of the town and its people became the sinister observations of a stalker. Sarah Jane. Hair like corn silk. A smile that hides a sadness, he read, his voice dripping with venom. He was obsessed with her. He said to one of his deputies, loud enough for me to hear. They arrested me the next morning. They made a point of doing it publicly. I was coming out of the general store with a bag of groceries when 2 patrol cars screeched to a halt in front of me. Brody pulled me out, twisted my arms behind my back, and cuffed me. The whole town watched. Their faces were a mixture of fear, hatred, and righteous anger. In the crowd I saw Sarah Jane's father, Jonathan Mayweather. His face was contorted with grief and rage. "You'll pay for what you did to my girl," he screamed. The cell in the local jail was old and damp. It smelled of desperation. I was trapped, buried beneath the weight of an entire town's lie. I was alone. My court-appointed defender was a man named Abe Goldstein. When I first saw him, my heart sank. He was old, stooped, and smelled of mothballs and whiskey. His office above the pharmacy was cluttered with dusty books and yellowed case files. He seemed like a relic, a tired man just going through the motions. He listened to my story, his watery blue eyes studying me over half-moon glasses. "So you're a writer who's done no wrong, in a town that does no wrong," he said when I'd finished. His voice was as dry as autumn leaves. "That's a tough story to sell, son." I was indicted for kidnapping and murder, despite the fact that there was no body. The prosecutor, an ambitious young man eager to win the favor of the Mayweather family, presented the case as if it were airtight. An obsessed outsider who stalked and abducted the town's darling. That night, in Abe's dusty office, he poured himself a glass of whiskey. "In this town, Sam, the truth is just another story. Our job is to tell a better one," he said, looking at me. It was then I realized there was more to this tired old lawyer than met the eye. The months before the trial were torture. I sat in a cell while the world outside decided my fate. Abe visited me regularly. He didn't talk much about legal strategy. Instead, he questioned me about everything I had seen in Red Creek, every car that passed, every conversation I overheard. He was like an archaeologist, carefully brushing away layers of dust from a long-forgotten relic. He wasn't just building a defense, he was excavating the truth of the town itself. The trial began on a hot July day. The courtroom was packed with hostile faces. The Mayweather family sat in the front row, their grief palpable and persuasive to the jury. The prosecutor was flawless. He called Sarah Jane's friends, who tearfully recounted how she was afraid of that creepy writer. He called Sheriff Brody, who presented my notebooks as the diaries of a madman. The narrative was simple, powerful, and utterly false. When it was Abe's turn, he moved slowly, almost lazily. But his questions were like precise scalpel incisions. On cross-examination of Sarah Jane's best friend, he didn't ask about me. He asked about calls to an untraceable number from a burner phone that Sarah Jane made late at night. The girl went pale. "I don't know anything about that," she lied. But a crack had appeared in Sarah Jane's perfect image. He called Sheriff Brody to the stand. "Sheriff, did you investigate any other leads?" Abe asked. "For instance, the lead that Sarah Jane had a secret boyfriend?" "That's nonsense," Brody snapped. "What about a local boy, Dylan Peck?" Abe continued. "Known for his violent temper and for being infatuated with Sarah Jane. Did you question him?" Brody hesitated. "We talked to him. He has an alibi." A murmur went through the courtroom. The Peck family and the Mayweather family had been feuding over land for decades. Slowly, Abe was building an alternative story. Not a story of a malevolent outsider, but a story of a town full of secrets. A story of a girl who wasn't the saint everyone thought she was. The breakthrough came when Abe called me to the stand again. But he didn't ask about the charges. He asked me to close my eyes and remember the day Sarah Jane disappeared. And to remember my walk on the trail by Highway 17. "What did you see, Sam? Not people. Cars," he urged. I sank into my memory, into the details I instinctively notice as a writer. I saw an old, rusted Ford pickup, blue, with a dent in the right fender. It passed me twice. Abe turned to the jury. "There's only one pickup truck like that in this county. And it belongs to the Peck family." Then Abe did the unthinkable. He called Dylan Peck as a defense witness. The boy was defiant and angry. He denied everything. But under Abe's methodical, calm pressure, he began to crack. "You loved her, didn't you, Dylan?" Abe asked softly. "Yeah," the boy whispered, his bravado gone. "And she loved you. You were together." "Secretly, because your fathers would have killed you," Abe continued. Dylan nodded, tears streaming down his face. "We were going to leave, start a new life. She was supposed to meet me that night on the highway. bring the money she'd been saving. The courtroom was frozen. The story Dylan was telling was shocking. Sarah Jane, the golden girl, was planning to run away with the son of her father's greatest enemy. "What went wrong, Dylan?" Abe asked, his voice barely a whisper. Her father, Dylan said, his voice trembling with fear and hatred. He must have followed her. He came out of nowhere. His face was like the devil's. He started screaming at her, dragging her toward his car. "And what did you do?" "I got scared," Dylan confessed, his face contorted in shame. "He's so powerful. I hit the gas and I drove away. I left her there with him." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Jonathan Mayweather leaped to his feet, his face crimson with rage. "Liar! You're lying!" he screamed, lunging for the witness stand before the bailiffs tackled him. But it was too late. His panic, his rage, was a confession. He hadn't killed her. Maybe. But he was the last one to see her. He was the reason she was gone. The entire edifice of lies built around me had crumbled in an instant. The charges against me were dropped. The investigation was reopened, its main suspect now the most powerful man in the county. The town was shattered, its most beautiful legend destroyed. I packed my few belongings. I felt no triumph, only a deep, consuming exhaustion. I had come here for silence and found only the noise of lies and hatred. As I drove out of town, I passed Abe's dusty office. He was standing in the window, watching me. He gave a slight nod, a gesture of respect between two men who knew the truth. I turned onto Highway 17, the road that had almost been my grave. Red Creek disappeared in my rearview mirror. I was free, but I knew a part of me would forever remain a ghost on that lonely highway, the outsider the town had tried to bury with its secrets,